We all hear the term child protective services, but
Mhm.
who knew there were adult protective services as well, not just in Texas, but in every state around the country?
And today we're bringing in Stephanie McCoy with Adult Protective Services here in Texas. Thanks so much for being with us, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start first with what exactly is Adult Protective Services and what does it do?
Great question. Adult Protective Services is under the umbrella of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. It's the same umbrella as Child Protective Services and Child Protective Services investigations. And what we do is we investigate allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of elderly that are 65 years and older
Mhm.
or 18 and older with a physical or mental disability.
Mhm.
And so when we confirm those allegations are actually happening, we go out and provide services.
Hmm.
So Adult Protective Services is something that is offered around the country. It just may be in different departments in different states and or have some different policies.
Absolutely.
But for the most part, the general idea of Adult Protective Services is going to be pretty similar.
Yes.
Okay. So what kinds of things should people report and who can report things to Adult Protective Services?
Actually, anyone can report allegations of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. All you need is a hunch and actually just you don't have to know that it's happening for sure.
Mhm.
But anyone that suspect that is happening, APS will go out after a report is made and we'll do the investigation. And we investigate 6 allegations. Physical abuse is one, of course. We have emotional and verbal abuse, physical neglect, medical neglect, and financial exploitation.
Hmm.
And so once we get an allegation that any of these are happening with a senior, we go out and we look at 5 areas in the home. We look at your environment, we look at your financial status, we look at your medical status, your mental health status, and your social status. What kind of social supports do you have to help you in your everyday living?
If something seems like it's not big enough or severe enough, how do we know, where that line is as far as what is enough to report it?
Well, we always tell anyone that it's everyone's business to report suspected abuse, neglect, or exploitation because a lot of our seniors are living alone, they're isolated in their homes, they're afraid to speak out, and their children may be their caregiver or another person that has an ongoing relationship with them. And things may be happening that's beyond their control, and they're needing someone to be their advocate.
Yeah.
So we're asking anytime that you suspect that there's any malnourishment going on, hoarding. I know you all have seen the shows of hoarders.
Mhm.
If you've seen any kind of type of medication mismanagement, if we know that a client may need provider services in their home, we just ask if you suspect anything going on to report it to Adult Protective Services, and then we'll go out and we'll do the investigation
Mhm.
to see is it happening, and if it is, we'll provide services to that client.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So what kinds of authority does APS have and what authority does it not have?
Well, we investigate from Chapter 48 of the Human Resource Code, and that gives us the authority to go out and do the investigation. It also gives us the authority to have access to bank records, and then it also gives the reporter immunity when they make a report. All our reports are kept confidential, so if you
Okay.
do make a report, it will be kept confidential. We cannot disclose who the reporter is, and we also have, if it's false reporting, you can be charged with a Class A misdemeanor.
Okay. So you don't want to just willy-nilly make an allegation, of course.
Right.
You want it to be something
Exactly.
that you really feel strongly about, uh, that before you make that, but also you're going to make that determination. And so if you find that yes, in fact, this is happening, this person is trying to scam mom or dad out of money, or maybe it's a solicitor, maybe it's one of the children, or something like that happens. Then what happens if it's found to be that yes, we think this neglect or abuse is happening?
Once we validate that it is happening, we go into what we call service planning. And Adult Protective Services work with a lot of community agencies within the community. So we will assist the client with money management, counseling, heavy house cleaning, extermination, We will assist them with applying for Medicare, Medicaid. We will purchase food, life-sustaining medications. We will help with finding appropriate housing, emergency housing. We do quite a bit of social services with our clients. And if we cannot find a service for our clients ourselves, we'll go out to our community partners, which we work with a lot of social service agencies in the community, and we will connect them with a service like Meals on Wheels. We'll connect them with adult daycare, just so we can get them out of the state of abuse, neglect, or exploitation.
And when we do want to report something, how do we do it? In the old days, it would just be a phone call, I suspect. But in today's technological world, are there other options?
There's two options. You can call our hotline number,
Mm-hmm.
which is 1-800-252-5400, or you can make an online report, which is www.txabusehotline.org.
Mm-hmm.
And once you make that report, we have 24 hours of receiving a report to contact you, the reporter, to get additional information about the client's current situation.
Okay, because you're going to want to ask the reporter some questions before you just show up
Exactly.
at the
Yes.
adults at the
Mhm.
older adult's house. And then
Yes.
what potentially happens if there is a person who was abusing or neglecting or exploiting that senior?
Well, what we do is once we validate if it's a criminal offense, we'll turn it over to law enforcement, and that's some of our exploitation cases. And so we'll just document in our cases that we have validated against this caregiver or provider in the home,
Mm-hmm.
and we try to find a least restrictive alternative for our client to get them out of that state of abuse, neglect, or
Mhm.
exploitation, and find alternative ways to support that client.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I assume that there are a lot of family versus family type of problems where a family member reports another family member. Are those tricky situations? How tough of a situation is that?
Yes, we get that all the time. And what we do, we just go in and we try to find the root cause of what is happening. And sometimes we have to go in and be the mediator.
Mm-hmm.
And once they know that adult protective services is actually involved, sometimes they pull back
Mhm.
because they don't want the state in their home, trying to tell them how to take care of their parent or their family or a loved one. So we are there to protect the client from themselves, from others. And we do that by going in, building rapport, and making sure that our client feels safe. And we hang tight, close to knitted to the client to
Mhm.
make sure that that client feels safe before we close the case.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and it seems like one thing that's very different, and I want to just make sure because I think people might have misconceptions about what adult protective services, does. With child protective services, we often hear about, a child being removed from the home if it's not a safe place. But with adult protective services, it doesn't work the same.
No, we're more of a social service agency. We're more of we're a helping agency.
Okay.
And so we're more of, we want to protect you, we want to keep you in your home. We don't want to remove you. We want to keep you in your home. We want you to be happy in your home environment, and we're there to protect you from anything that's stopping that from happening.
So are there other misconceptions that people might have that if I call if I call adult protective services, they're going to take mom and, make her leave. Are there other misconceptions that people have about what APS might do?
Absolutely. A lot of times, one of the misconceptions is that we're going to come and remove them from their home and place them in a nursing home. Another misconception is that they feel that they call adult protective services, we will immediately run to the client, but we have priorities.
Mhm.
And we try to see first if there's immediate intervention needed before we go out. That's why we contact the reporter within 24 hours. So we work closely with law enforcement,
Mhm.
and law enforcement accompany us a lot of times when we go out to the homes. And so we try to make sure that we cover all of our boundaries when we're working with our clients. And so a lot of times when we have those misconceptions, we try to make sure they understand we're not here to put you in a nursing home. We're here to protect you.
Mhm. So
And
really, I really feel like from what you're saying, APS is more of an advocate, if you will.
absolutely, yes.
Well, that was going to be part of my final question is that I think it's no doubt for a lot of us, if someone gets scammed, like Kim's mom's been scammed a couple of times, I'd love to call Adult Protective Services if I knew who it was to get them, for what they did to Kim's mom. Oh yes, definitely punish them, get them in trouble. But when it's something you're just not sure about, oh my gosh, it's your cousin or an in-law or something like that, you're just not sure. Is there any word of advice you can give people about? Yes, you should make that call because it'll make you feel better, or what should you do because you're just worried about if you should do it or not?
Well, for one, Adult Protective Services, we do not investigate scams. However, when we get those reports to us, we refer them to the Better Business Bureau, the Federal Trade Commission, the Homeland Security. But what we investigate is financial exploitation.
Yeah.
Anything over $25 is taken from our client that someone has an ongoing relationship, that's considered theft. So we turn that over to law enforcement. But if you still have a hunch that something is happening and you're not for sure, it's better to be safe than sorry, because you could save someone's life. And when you think about it that way, it could be your grandma, your grandpa. And if you make the report, a lot of times our reporters feel that we can let them know what's going on with the case, but we can't because everything is confidential. But you would have done your part by actually making the call. And then once you make the call, it will be in our hands.
Great advice.
So better to call, have that discussion with the Adult Protective Services agent that might call you to kind of talk through that. Yes, this might be a concern, and yes, we're going to go. We're going to go investigate it. Better safe than sorry in that case.
Yes.
One thing you mentioned too is that you're not allowed to talk about open cases. So once I report something, I'm not going to necessarily know how it ends unless I just happen to see what happens.
Exactly, right.
And you don't do guardianship?
No, we refer to guardianship. And Department of Aging and Disability Services, they're the agency that actually have wards of the state, and they are responsible for the guardianship cases. But we do work closely with them because they're our sister agency, and so we refer to them. So we're just kind of collaboration agencies working together.
Okay, gotcha. And then just for people to know who don't live in the state of Texas, that they can look for Adult Protective Services and find out what agency it's under in their state, and just know that policies might be just a little bit different on
Absolutely.
what is offered.
Policies may be a little different, but it's going to be pretty much the same across the board. And it's everyone's business to make a report. In Texas, we do have mandated reporters. Anyone that has a license, like a doctor or nurse, psychiatrists, they are mandated to make a report.
Okay, gotcha. For the rest of us, it's just if we feel like something doesn't look right, go ahead and make a call.
Yes.
All right.
That's good. Great advice. Stephanie, thank you so much. You really helped us a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just good to know that that Adult Protective Services is really there to advocate for seniors and really help give them the services. I didn't realize that they really work to try to get those services for people.
Really good to know.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry. Good to remember that. Hey, if there's any other topics you'd like us to discuss, please let us know. Parenting aging parents.